right, well, hi everyone. My name is Aaron Upright, and I am the co-founder over at Zenhub. And today I'm joined by John Winter from Kizen. We're going to be talking a little bit about two related concepts that don't always come up in the same context, which is no code and developer productivity. So, John, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be with you, Aaron. Excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So to start us off, John, can you give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself and tell us a bit more about Kaizen and your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was 13 years old. I've started 6 companies over that time frame, and immediately prior to Kaizen, I was a consultant that helped everything from rapid growth startups to Fortune 100 enterprises implement technology to help them deliver better customer experiences, grow faster, and make team members happier. And through all of our work with that, it led to the idea of Kaizen. And what we do at Kizen is we exist to democratize cutting edge technologies like integrated data, automation, and AI to help sales, marketing, and operations teams do more and ultimately help everyone live better. And I'd love to also hear a little bit more about Zenhub as well. And what are some of your goals and objectives with that?
Yeah, thanks for that answer. And to answer your question, at Zenhub, our mission is really about making software teams more productive. We see this growing kind of supply and demand imbalance in building software, where organizations have so much software that they want to build and so many software projects and products that they want to bring to market, but not nearly enough development resources and product resources to be able to work through all of that work. And so we know that the developer population isn't going to magically grow overnight, and we're encouraged by the fact that we see developer populations around the world and growing, and more people getting into STEM and into tech. But we think a more immediate solution to that is making existing teams more productive, and that's really what our product aims to do. We evolved from a very simple, kind of very rudimentary Chrome extension that brought project management concepts into GitHub to now a very full-featured platform that brings a lot of different productivity elements to play to help teams plan and track work, report on that work, and even build real-time roadmaps, all informed by what's happening in their code base. So we bring in that nice piece of automation as well, so that teams have the ability, when they're planning and tracking work, instead of having to manually update those systems, have them updated and automatically updated based on what's happening in the code base.
That's awesome. And I will say that I love Zenhub. I love everything that you guys have built, and I've loved tracking how you've added so much functionality and impact with the platform. So very excited to be here today and talk more about all that.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I'm really curious, you talked about your mission of kind of democratizing a lot of the ability for teams to customize, elements of their sales process and their CRM process. I'm curious, when it comes to developer productivity, is that a concept that you guys are thinking about at Kaizen? And I'm kind of curious to get your take on what you think about developer productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think your points, we completely agree with here at Kaizen, in that there is a massive shortage of engineering available today. So we agree that engineering productivity needs to be maximized, but let's quantify some of this. Today, estimates are that there's about 26 million software engineers in the world total. And the US Department of Labor projects that they're going to have over an 82 million developer shortage by 2030, right?
That's
82
huge,
million.
yeah.
When you think that's huge. The population of the United States as a whole is only 350 million people. So we know that software is such an important part of our lives. It's involved in almost everything that we touch today. And so I agree with you 100% on making sure that we can help teams be more productive, and specifically development teams be more productive. I think one of the things that we do really uniquely with our platform that helps us internally with what we do with our developers as well as with our customers is we make sure that development teams are getting accurate information from the customers that they serve, right? So being able to track which customers are requesting which features in your sales pipeline, which of your existing customers are looking to grow with different functionality. So by integrating the data together from your sales team, your marketing team, and your support team, we here at Kizen use our own tool and our own platform to feed data in to figure out what developers should work on. From a productivity standpoint, one of the other really important things that we found with our development team is using the lane-based approach that Zenhub has, where, there's multiple, it's kind of, I guess, a Kanban board is how you could think about it, right? And making sure that it's very clear what stage each development task or feature or bug fix is in, and who is responsible for this stage, making sure that we're able to quickly move important features from the product phase, going through an engineering review so that we have a well-scoped ticket where we've really thought things through. We place a heavy emphasis here at Kizen on really taking the time to architect things properly and plan them properly, and then have them go through the development process with the individual engineers, the code review, the automated and manual QA, and then ultimately a product review and sign off before it goes live. So I'd love to, maybe transition to hear a little bit more of your thoughts on developer productivity and how Zenhub is helping, with that.
Yeah. So, our product is really built around kind of three pillars. And one of the pillars of our product that I think is most related to developer productivity is something that we've kind of coined and we call automated or autonomous agile. And, one of the things I think that a lot of teams struggle with is kind of what you were talking about, which is how do I set up that process, or how do I, build those best practices into our software development process, or the way that we build software, so that we are productive as a team and we're getting ideally product to market as fast as possible. And that's something that we've built kind of a whole kind of pillar of our product around, trying to help facilitate those best practices in our product and provide automated ways for teams to do a lot of the really common agile events and rituals that they would typically be doing to organize what they're going to be working on. So to give an example of that, sprint planning may be something you guys do, and maybe not quite something you guys are doing yet. But it's a familiar kind of concept that we see a lot of teams who are building software are planning sprints and estimating work. Those backlog refinement meetings and those sprint planning meetings can take up a lot of time, where the team is trying to come together and figure out what to work on in the next couple of weeks. And so we've actually built some automation into our product to help teams kind of get a better starting state. For example, we automatically will bring in work based on how they've prioritized it on their board, and actually give that to them as a potential starting state and say, hey, we think this is what you should be focusing on in a sprint. Does this look okay, or is there other things that you want to add to that? So automatically kind of building that for them, so that hopefully it's 80% of the way there, and then the team can kind of finish off the rest of the 20% and make sure that what's actually included is going to be right for what they want to work on. So it's a huge impact on productivity, because it means that those sprint planning meetings, those backlog refinement meetings, they're being run more efficiently, and ultimately developers and the team are getting more time back to work on what matters, which is building and shipping code.
Awesome.
Well, speaking of code, there's another kind of concept that I wanted to touch on today that I was kind of curious to get your opinion on. And I saw it kind of plastered all over the Kizen website when I went to check it out. And it's that concept of kind of no code. I'm curious, do you have an opinion when it comes to kind of no code and low code? Do you have an opinion on what types of software should be built by developers, and maybe what types of software, what types of products are better to be enabled or built by no code or low code solutions?
Yeah. Well, as we've discussed, developer time is so precious that our philosophy is that only the most valuable to humanity kind of applications should be directly worked on by developers. And because of the shortage, if we can make it so that things like sending out a personalized email with dynamic images from a marketing team can be done without, needing to be coded, that would be great. So what we've done is go through core sales, marketing, and operations workflows, as well as a lot of the work that teams need to do to be able to integrate data. And generally, when you look at legacy tools, many of which are the leaders today, but were built in the 90s or the early 2000s, which is, long time ago in tech terms,
Yep.
there's a lot of developers who are having to spend their time supporting organizations doing basic customizations to an interface in a software, or helping with a marketing email or marketing landing page. And to me, I think that with the shortage of engineers, we really need to focus on the cutting edge, the new. I personally, as someone who beats the drum for no code a lot with what we do, love the empowerment that has for organizations. And at the same time, am so grateful for our engineering team and can't wait to have more developers on our team and have that continue to grow. So there's very clearly a need for continued development for forever by developers. But as we look and empower organizations to do more and more themselves, I think it also frees up engineers to do work that's more fun for them. And we've actually seen that from internal IT teams, like data scientists who are like, oh my God, I have to spend all this time doing these basic queries to this database. This isn't the type of work I got into this for, right? And so it's really freeing developers up to do the more creative, interesting, challenging work, stuff on the edges, and work on the most impactful things. That's kind of how I think about it. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think we see those same patterns when I talk to our developers internally. The work that gets them really excited is always the work that's customer facing. And like you said, it's kind of the kind of leading edge work that is typically application development. That's work that's going to be put in front of our customers, or work that's going to be actually built into our product. It's not typically the infrastructure work that maybe needs to happen to kind of address some of the technical debt that we've accrued in the product, or some of the foundational work maybe in and around systems and tools that need to happen internally, around building CI/CD pipelines and things like that. So I see the same trend where our developers are always gravitating towards that type of work. And I couldn't agree more that if we could free up more of their time to focus on that, ultimately, I think that's going to be more fulfilling for them. That's going to help us build a really strong employee retention story on the developer side of things, and ultimately mean that we are probably bringing product to market faster for our customers, which is the ultimate end goal, because we have more of our developers' time focused on that than on kind of internal infrastructure and internal piping. So.
Love that. Yeah. And
Awesome.
One of the big things that we've also focused on here at Kizen is the idea of templates, right? And best practices. Really, because of our expertise of working with so many different sales, marketing, and operations teams in different industries, we've been able to say, okay, a lot of you are setting up things that are very similar, right? And so this allows organizations to move much faster. I'm curious, being someone who, has a pretty sizable engineering team now at Kizen, what are some of the best practices that you recommend for organizations that are using Zenhub and that are kind of growing their engineering, and what should we be thinking about?
Yeah, I think a really interesting question, and it comes up a lot from our customers as well. I think we could spend probably hours talking about best practices and methodologies and process. But maybe kind of a better way to address that question is that it does come up from a lot of customers, and we do see a lot of that same question being asked. And I think we like to think of ourselves at Zenhub as that solution for scaling teams. Maybe they've started off in a spreadsheet, or maybe a pretty simple rudimentary tool, but they've realized that as their team is growing and as their company is scaling and they're adding more developers now, that they need to build in more process. And so typically they start moving from a very large engineering organization to more of a squad-based model where there's autonomous development squads that maybe have embedded product teams or embedded product designers in them. And they're looking for ways to kind of now break up that work and give each one of those squads kind of a separate place to work, but connect those all together so that leadership and other stakeholders from the company still can kind of have that high-level overview. Something I think we see really eye to eye on, though, is the need for those kind of templates and best practices. And that's actually something that's a bit of an aspirational goal for us that we'd like to invest more time into in 2023 for our customers, because there are so many teams that are in the scale mode of growing from 10 to 20 or 20 to 50 employees that don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel. Like you said, they don't want to come up with a novel new approach. They just want to know what the best teams are doing and really structure their approach after that and try to make that work. So it's been something we've been thinking about a lot as we've been building our product of how do we bring more templates into our product and really just go look at what our best customers are doing in our product and try to democratize that so that everyone has access to those templates or those best practices that we think is going to be a really winning recipe and something that customers really have a need for, especially those kind of scale ups that are going through that rapid transition and that rapid team building.
Yeah, I think that's so huge because those of us that are in positions of leadership that are lucky enough to be going through the scaling, journey with our teams, I think it's really important to manage overwhelm, right? I think we talked about productivity and how we have such a shortage of resources. And one of the biggest things that I see in organizations that we work with and that we had to solve here early in Kizen is when we have all these different things that we can potentially work on and multiple different project streams that our development teams working on, how do we make sure that people don't feel overwhelmed? Because it's such a paralyzing situation when that starts happening. And I think the structure that Zenhub is able to bring in and that process is something that allows everyone to really let their creativity thrive. I think it allows us to be like, okay, we understand what's in our lane, what we need to complete, where we need to put 100% of our effort today. Because as long as we can keep being like spending our time really intentionally and valuably, it allows our initiatives to be much more successful and see what we can really create together as a team. So I love everything that you said about how you enable that at Zenhub.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, last question for you, John. I don't want to keep you too long today, but I'm going to ask you to predict the future here because I think there's a lot of really interesting things that are happening in tech right now. 2023 is already shaping up to be a very different year. And 2022, we already started to see layoffs. We started to see down rounds and those types of signals. But we've seen that be even more amplified in kind of the early weeks of 2023 here. So given everything that's kind of happening in tech right now and the kind of broad economic conditions, what do you think the impact is going to be on productivity? And do you think productivity is going to be even more of a focus than it is today in the rest of 2023?
Yeah. So I heard a great quote that I'll repeat here. And it was from a VC, and he used the phrase that as the macroeconomic theme is moving from one of growth to one of profitability, there is going to be significant changes in how businesses are funded, how they spend money, what the emphasis points are, right? So that's one side of things. There are going to be changes, and I'm happy to talk more about how, people are going to be looking more at efficiency and trying to figure out what are our investments. People might not be growing their teams as fast. But we also earlier talked about how there's an 80 million person, an expert shortage projected by 2030. So the overall macroeconomic tailwinds for those of us that are in tech, that are working on enabling a better future for everyone with the projects that we develop, bringing automation to save time, bringing data together, helping teams be more productive. I think that this is going to be an incredibly supportive environment for all of that. And I think that what we need to do is just understand that in life, there's going to be kind of the ups and downs that happen, right? But when you track, industries over a long period of time, people that are working on the best projects that are delivering value, they go through the ups and downs and they continue to grow through them. Maybe not as fast, but they continue to grow and focus on their fundamentals and, take the next step for them. So this is also a really unique time from the standpoint of people who are in earlier stage tech. There has never been so much dry powder in VC and private equity pockets as there now is today. And these people are paid to put money to work. I heard another VC say that 2023 could potentially be the best time ever to start a company in tech because of this amount of money that's on the sidelines. And so I think if you have conviction, you and your team have conviction around what you're building and how you're serving and where it drives value, right? I think we always, as entrepreneurs, should be focused on what is the ROI, what is the impact of what we're building, right? Where is it creating value? And if we have an obsession with that, I think, I'm still very bullish on founders who are working on cool projects with that focus. So curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, some of these themes that we've been talking around, and particularly productivity, I mean, that need is not going to go away as organizations scale. I feel like, we're not going to get back to the times where, we're just hiring and hiring and hiring, and we're not really thinking about productivity and how we are making the most of the team that we have. So I feel like if we can do it now in the economic conditions that we're kind of being served, as things start to stabilize and maybe we start to get back to the markets that we once kind of saw a couple of years ago, the need for productivity isn't necessarily going to go away. And I don't think the focus around productivity is going to go away for organizations. I think this could be a very good year in forcing organizations, as you kind of mentioned, to think more about efficiency and more about productivity and make investments accordingly into those, those themes. And so I'm really excited about the year ahead. I know that, there's probably a lot of unknown and there's probably a lot of difficulties that lay ahead, but I think there's also a lot of opportunity as well. And to kind of give another quote that we heard from one of our VCs, don't let a good crisis go to waste, which is, thinking about, what teams are really focusing on and those fundamentals that every team is now having to come back and rethink, and how, you can be relevant in those conversations and create value in those conversations. So, I think, overall, there's, you think if you look on Twitter and really anywhere, there's a lot of cause for concern and a lot is rightly placed. But overall, I think we're still very bullish and very excited on the future. So
that's awesome. And I think that with the last question that I have for you that I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on is, when you're focusing on the fundamentals, right? And when you're trying to figure out how am I going to grow my team? What is my team going to look like? How does Zenhub help organizations manage the quantity of software that they want to build versus the number of developers on their team?
Yeah. One of the ways we do that is what we call kind of our real-time roadmap in our product. And I think that really helps to build this bridge that oftentimes is missing in a lot of organizations between the business strategy and what's kind of happening in the code base, so that teams can be kind of putting together these roadmaps of their major projects and initiatives, and then kind of see how they're making progress towards those, and kind of manage them all in a roadmap kind of dashboard view, and kind of look at them side by side. And that's something we've used a lot at Zenhub to kind of really look at our objectives and our key results that we want to hit as a company, and saying, based on the progress that we're making, are we taking on too much? Are we working on the right things? Having that holistic view is a really good starting point for that, because if we understand everything that we're working on and we can kind of see that all in a single view or a single pane of glass, it becomes easier to manage those priorities and make sure that we're working on the right things as a team, and not, just taking too much work on, and because we can't track it or see it in one place, kind of forgetting all those commitments that we've made. One of the changes that we've recently made is to start to deprioritize some of the feature-based work that we've maybe committed to a little bit preemptively, I guess, and really kind of focus back inwards on our customer and make sure that we are really investing in our customer experience first. And one of the ways that we kind of saw that is kind of looking at all the items that we had on our roadmap and saying, hey, this just feels like too much. And given the economic uncertainties and realities that we're facing, we're best served right now by focusing more on our customer than we ever have before in our business. Let's make sure to make that a priority. And maybe we can push off some of these other things that are a bit more innovation focused to later in the year. So starting from our roadmap was a really critical place to be able to see all those and then kind of make those decisions as a company. So.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And I cannot wait to see what is in store for the future releases of Zenhub.
Awesome. Me too. Well, John, thank you so much for your time today. I don't want to keep you for too much longer, but this has been a really informative conversation, and loved getting your opinions on kind of no code and where we're going, and talking about developer productivity with you. So thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you, Aaron. It's really fun. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.